Hello everybody, and good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to today's webinar from MediaTek Labs and Iotic Labs on Big Data and IoT, the opportunities and challenges. My name is Michael Francis and I'm look after marketing for MediaTek Labs. So with no further ado, I'm now going to hand over to Ed Kay, who's from MediaTek Labs, and Ali Nicholl, who's from Iotic Labs, who are going to talk you through Big Data and IoT.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another in our webinar series. It's great to speak to you all wherever you are in the world. My name's Ed, so I'm a Developer Relations Manager for MediaTek. Today we're going to look at one area of IoT development, which is the kind of concept of big data and data capture in general, and what you can do with it, some of your options, maybe give you some ideas for your own solutions going forward. First thing I'd like to do is thank Ali from Iotic Labs for joining us today. Iotic have got a very interesting solution, and we'll talk about that in due course. And just to kind of set the scene for your information, hopefully some of you have been with us before. If you haven't, the idea that we have is that MediaTek Labs is really focused on accelerating your IoT ideas through to prototyping and onto a final product that you can sell in hopefully millions of units. So we're really looking to support you, to accelerate you, and to really kind of ensure that you have a successful product as a result. This webinar series we started last month with an overview of the whole value chain from having an idea right the way through to mass producing a product. The webinar series is intended to cover that value chain and to dive into elements of that value chain in much more detail. And we're very happy to get feedback from our audience, from the developer community, as to the areas that they're finding challenging or they're interested in for future webinars as well. This webinar will be available as a download shortly after this webinar is finished. This particular event is going to be concentrating on big data, as we mentioned. And the agenda for the day, for the morning, sorry, don't want to scare you too much, is that we'll go into a bit of background about MediaTek, why this is important for MediaTek, how we can help develop things, some ideas about capturing data. Then we'll talk to Ali about Iotic Space from Iotic Labs, and then a final slide about what do I do next. We're estimating around 30-35 minutes of conversation, which should leave enough time for some interesting questions at the end. So MediaTek, some of you will be aware of the name, some of you won't be aware of the name. We're not necessarily a consumer brand that you will have heard of, but the technology is all around us. Many of you have got smart TVs, you'll find MediaTek chips inside those TVs. Tablets, smartphones, wearable technology, routers, DVD players and such, and we're market leading in many of these categories. So while you might buy a Sony TV, you may not know that there's a MediaTek chip inside it. Equally in tablets and connectivity, we're very popular at the moment. Why is this important? It's important because what it shows is that we're actually enabling more than 1 billion devices that are sold each year. So it shows we've got the experience to scale and to support developers who are looking to produce mass market products. MediaTek Labs, so the particular part of MediaTek that Michael and I work in is called MediaTek Labs, and we're really the developer ecosystem for MediaTek. It's a global program, it's free to join. It's really to support professional developers who are looking to build their first steps in the IoT world, to build prototypes, proof of concepts, and then we can help to accelerate that through to an industrial design and a final product. So we support with device creation, we'll support you with app development, and also any services that you may require. And on the right there you can see the landing page for the MediaTek Labs website. As I've already mentioned, really we're about enabling success, really helping from somebody who says, I've got a great idea that will help my business really accelerate its proposition, and we can help them take that from an idea. You may not have any idea of how to convert that into some physical device, so we can help with that. We have a large ecosystem of companies that we work with who provide expertise in various areas. Iotic is a great case in point. They're experts in big data, security, industrial design, compliance testing, those sort of things. So if MediaTek itself can't help, we have a company that we know who can. On top of that, on the website, we have developer resources, there's access to hardware information, free SDKs, technical support, advice, a very active forum, and go-to-market help, really. And we believe we are the best solution partner for IoT. We have kind of insight into many things such as big data analysis, vision and sensor technology, machine learning, and our platform, alongside our advanced system-on-chip, multimedia services, and connectivity, makes us a real compelling choice. In terms of the devices that you can start to build your prototypes and develop proof of concepts on, we have a number of products at the moment. The LinkIt one is very much an Arduino-ready device. It allows DIY and maker community, as well as professional developers, to really get an Arduino-ready board with a 250 megahertz processor, but with unrivaled connectivity on top. So it has Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPRS, GPS, all on the sort of same board, so you don't need to buy any kind of extenders or additional shields for that to work. And it will work with kind of Arduino sketches, or you can kind of take a more advanced kind of Eclipse approach to your development. We have the 7688, which is an open source Wi-Fi platform, more for professional developers, but it gives you access to services using OpenWRT, Python, node.js. So some of the kind of web services can be built very easily on that. The LinkIt Connect, very simple way to enable Wi-Fi connectivity with your devices. Great for kind of low-cost smart home or office deployments. We actually have a new member to the family, which I think was announced yesterday. This is a LinkIt board from a company called Stack. Low power, highly integrated Wi-Fi system on chip for IoT devices. There's a common set of toolchains and APIs for multiple chipsets, which essentially means that in the future you'll be able to use the same toolset and then deliver to multiple products going forward. So when we bring out a new product in the future, you can use the same toolchain to target that as well. So it kind of removes some of the barriers to having to learn new toolchains all the time. So Arduino Uno compatible pinout. It has a security engine in there, very good power consumption. It's an excellent board. All the information is available on the lab's website, so if you want to have a look at it in more detail. As I say, it's very new. It was only announced yesterday, so looking forward to seeing what people can make with that. In terms of why is this interesting for MediaTek? Well, the IoT value chain, as I'm showing here, is made of a number of different discrete areas. And I know there are some companies that try and cover the whole value chain. MediaTek knows that it adds value in specific areas, specifically really in things and in networking. So building things that could be devices or just kind of discrete objects on their own, but also the connectivity side of it, where we add a lot of value. What we don't really kind of offer, apart from with relationships with other companies, are the communication services, the big data, and the applications. But we did provide a sandbox, for instance, for you when you're building your first rough prototype to allow you to enable to see some of the data that you're generating very early on. It's very rudimentary, but it gives you a very quick snapshot and allows you to kind of put something together and kind of show it as a proof of concept that you've got something working. Big data. So on the subject of big data, data is generated everywhere. If we look at these verticals, these are the verticals that MediaTek kind of is particularly interested in. And as you can see in each vertical, we have a number of different devices or things. Most of those are devices. And obviously, each of those devices, there'll be multiple sensors and other kind of gadgets. Now, each of those is going to be generating data. So you can see that the amount of data that's going to be captured is going to be huge. And here's an example of the type of sensors that you might see around each of those individual things. Accelerometer, compass, temperature, thermometer, humidity, barometer. Many of you are familiar with these. A lot of them are very easily available in component form to plug into the LinkIt boards. And this kind of falls into the whole kind of way that there's been a shift in scale of computing power in the last 20 to 30 years. You know, in the 80s and 90s, the PC was a single entity, maybe didn't really have any sensors at all, maybe only one. We've come into the 2000s, the mobile device has been the unit of computing power, and maybe it has a few sensors, but not that many. Probably accelerometer and GPS may be the only ones that you've had in the early 2000s. But as we move forward, the scale of objects is going to increase drastically. Every street light will be a thing in the future. Every speed bump may be a thing in the future. So the scale of devices is going to rapidly increase. And on top of that, each one of those things will have multiple sensors. So all of those generating data is hence why we call it big data. There's going to be a huge amount of data. Can we cope with it? Do we know what to do with it? Well, that's kind of part of the conversation today. The other side of this is that as we're creating new things, new devices, new applications are developed, new services are built, so you've got a virtuous cycle forming. But of course, the new services and new apps will in themselves generate new data on top. So it's not just the raw data that we're talking about, but there'll be data that comes off the back of that as well. So data is just going to explode. So, in terms of initial considerations, our view is that data will become the new currency. I do have a view that in the future, you might buy a pair of, Nike trainers, and Nike may want that data from you, but usually you'd expect something back from Nike in return for that data. So I think there'll be some value-add transactions that will take place in the future. Also, we need to consider data security. What do we consider to be sensitive data? And that has implications on the type of connectivity and transmission that you have with the data, how frequently you do it, and also storing that data. If you're storing sensitive data, you then need to have additional considerations in place to make sure that data is safe, secure, encrypted, and is not accessible from any external places that shouldn't be looking at it. And the big kind of variable in this equation is going to be the regional variations. Obviously, we're talking to you from sunny Cambridge today, so we have UK and EU regulations regarding data protection, but in different parts of the world, that will vary. So it's important that you kind of are aware and understand wherever your devices will be built and deployed, but there may be regulations that you're not aware of, or that you need to, you will need to find out what the particular data regulations are. Now, a question we get sometimes from people is, do I need to generate big data? And it's very dependent upon the solution. Some solutions by their nature generate masses and masses of data. I was at an event last week where one of the guys was talking about connected cars. One of the guys said we could easily generate 25 gigabytes of data a day from a car. Now the question is, do I need to? Am I going to do anything with it? And are there other things that implies? So there may be additional technical considerations to do with the use of the data that you're generating. Connectivity, for a start. How frequently do you need that data? Is it real time? Can it be aggregated into a discrete chunk so you can actually turn your device off, reactivate it, burst some data over, then turn it off again? Is latency a problem? In some cases it absolutely will be. In some cases it clearly isn't. And does this have an effect on the performance of your device? Battery-powered devices obviously don't lend themselves greatly to multiple day or multiple week use of ongoing real-time data delivery. So, you need to bear all these things in mind. And also, is it always appropriate? Now, we'll probably hear from Ali later about this, but if you're capturing specific types of data, although you might be interested in a subset of that data, do you need to send it all in one go? Can you do something else with it? These are all questions that you need to ask as you're building your solution and really understanding your actual target audience. The capture and analytics is a huge part of this. I spotted an interesting article last week, I think it was. Verizon Research had indicated that, this is US based by the way, indicates that around only 8% of companies in the US are using more than a quarter of the data they capture, which is kind of interesting. Does it mean that people are capturing far too much data? Does it mean they don't understand the value in the data that they are capturing? And why is it only 8%? Have they not seen the most effective return on investment yet? My view is they will do, but it may be a longer term before they do. So the potential to analyse this data really means that there's additional business intelligence that can be generated, and this kind of starts to be interesting for legacy companies. Things that we think are going to be important in the future, machine learning, improving your customer insights, huge thing, certainly in retail that will become a big thing. Trend analysis, so you're able to be aware of what's happening before it becomes visible and maybe make certain actions in good time. And actually, the way you take your data and then analyse it and act on it might be the differentiating service. If you look at a lot of the smart bands, the fitness bands at the moment, Fitbits and so on, many of them do the same thing. They may have a different plastic to them, they may look different, they may have different design, but actually a lot of them do the same thing, and many of the deciding points are around how they capture the data and then display that back to you, and do they give you value in terms of, say, sleep analysis. So I think that the capture analytics is going to become a huge kind of differentiating. And to give you an example of a contextual situation, some actions that when you're capturing data, may be immediate, and some may not be immediate. The case that I'd like to think about is if you're driving your car and you encounter an icy road. Now, the immediate action you need to take, or your car needs to take, is does it need to do anything to react to the icy conditions to keep you safe, to keep you protected? Does it need to also suspend it? In autonomous vehicles in the future, this is going to become huge. Anything that happens on the road, your car will need to immediately react to and be aware of. Now, the kind of critical time element to this is that your car, if it encounters an oil patch or an icy road, can also then send that to the cloud so that other cars that are approaching that area will be aware of it and can take preemptive action. Now that isn't so critical, so that can be cloud-based. So you've got cloud processing and you've got local processing based on the same data. So as you can see, it becomes quite an interesting discussion around what you do with the different types of data and how you kind of recognize whether you need to contextually do something immediately or you've got time to do something, or both. And of course, the other thing about local processing is you're able to clean up the data. You know, you may be capturing quite a lot of raw data that you can clean up, maybe encrypt it if that's appropriate as well. But it may mean that you're able to then send more appropriate data and in smaller chunks as well, so it could be more efficient for you. Of course, local processing does have to take a hit on battery and some other things like that. But in a car, for instance, the battery kind of considerations are not quite so critical. So now you've got the data. Have you captured enough data, or is it the right data? I don't know, and you may not know as well. It may be once you've deployed your hardware that you start to bring the data in and you're thinking, I haven't captured enough, or I'm not capturing the right data at all. Is there other data that you could feasibly think about that could add richness to my data set, but I'm not able to actually generate it myself? Should I even keep the data to myself that I'm generating? It may be company critical, but it might not be. Is there another way? And that's why I think we've got our friend Ali from MediaTek Labs to now kind of take us through the other way.
Fantastic. Hello everyone, delighted to be here. Thank you very much to MediaTek Labs for inviting us. I'm Nicholl. I look after communication, community and engagement at Iotic Labs. And Iotic Labs, who are we? Well, we've created this online environment that we call Iotic Space. And Iotic Space allows you to interact with the internet the way people do for things. And it's important, and Ed alluded to it, that when we talk about things in IoT and data in IoT, it is not a direct one-to-one of devices to things. Derived things are as vital, as real, and as important as real things. So a car parking space is a thing, the reservation for that car parking space is a thing, the car in the car parking space is a thing, a car not being in the car parking space can also be a thing. So a dumb car parking space can have at least 4 things coming off it. Like the internet, Iotic Space is independent of communication network, device technology. We're essentially an abstraction layer between things and the internet, enabling this mass adoption and the servitization of IoT, which is really where stuff's going to come in. So things, data from anything, big data engines, individual devices, data sets, historical and dynamic, can interact, share, you can find them, you can exchange them, you can match them together, and you can push them back out. And one of the things about IoT and the big data challenge is we need to be thinking of it as this balanced equilibrium, where there are things and people on both sides, data coming from people and things, and data going to people and things. We are fast getting to the point where people are going to want to interact with data, but we're also going to want to programmatically do things with data. To the maintenance point, we want our things to be able to communicate with each other, to work with other data sets, whether data, performance data, analytical data, and then directly control and feed back to other devices without people having to jump in and get in the way. Why is all this important? Why are we so passionate about sharing data? Because no man is an island. I mean, and we know it to be true, and yet often we find ourselves coming up, especially in big data conversations, that this somehow isn't the case. Yes, some of your communication, your networks or your ecosystems are insular, and they might be intra communications, they might be intra-conversations, but there will always be other players that you're reaching out to and people that you need to communicate with, partnerships, an ecosystem of partners, suppliers, customers. And even then, we start to think, okay, well then that's fine. I know within my industry, my railway of things, my retail environment of things, I know that to be true. But actually it goes much, much further than that. No industry is an island either. We know that data being created, data sets, big data around each industry is in turn impacting on and informing other industries, other people, other companies, other organizations. A great example that some of the first people that were interested in Iotic Space was railways and smart cities. And we all know that pretty much every smart city in Europe also has within it a railway station. So instantaneously we find out that it doesn't matter how connected, how much data sharing you have across your railway, your rail lines, your rail infrastructure, if that's not talking to your smart city and transport systems and weather systems and everything else within your city, you instantly have a disconnect. Ed's brilliant little cartoon there at the end was talking about people not having the slightest idea what to do with their big data. And part of that is this absence of collaboration and sharing. It's because ultimately their big data set is the red bricks on the left. And you look at the red bricks and you think, these are great. I've got lots of red bricks. I'm gathering all these red bricks. What can I build with my red bricks? Well, I don't know. Once you've thought of one or two obvious red things, here in the UK it might be a post box, but once you've done that obvious thing, where do you go next? Well, where you go next is by sharing it, and selectively sharing it. Security and access control is a massive thing, obviously. There will be things you want to share with internally, things you want to share with partners, and things you want to share with the wider world. But the more that you can put out there, the more you can share your data and put it in this big pile. Yes, it's scary, yes, it's disruptive, but also what it allows people to do is creatively collaborate and create things that you, on your own, may never have thought of. I mean, effectively, for things like servitization, this can be you outsourcing R&D. You can provide data streams, data sets, aggregated data to communities which are non-business critical to you and empower other people to do other things. You can enrich your own data set to do interesting things. If we think back, taking a step back from where we are right now and think back to where we were in the Industrial Revolution, what's interesting to me is anywhere people talk about data and IoT, and Ed spoke about it with MediaTek's own focus, is that there are people who want to tell you they can do the whole stack. And if we cast our mind back to the Industrial Revolution, no one was looking at the Industrial Revolution and saying, I can own all of this. I will do the steel, I will do the coal, I will do the rail track, I will invent the steam engine, I will do it all, the spinning jenny, the works. Why? Because you are an expert. Be expert in something, as MediaTek are, because that focus allows scale. By collaborating with others, by sharing data either dynamically or in sets or whatever it might be, you can enable incredible transformative things to happen. And what we're moving from is an internet of silos to a true internet of things. So the topic for today was opportunities and challenges. I mean, what does this mean? Well, if we can share this data, if we can get it out there, if we can talk to each other and we can collaborate, we can start to say for our services, and I agree wholeheartedly with Ed, service and service provision is going to be the differentiator. We are past the point where it is more physical devices in your pocket, more things doing linear things to linear stacks. So how can we leverage what we already exist within your own organization? That Verizon statistic is fantastic. 8% are using more than 25%. And it's not clear from their own research how much more than 25% they're using. It's entirely possible that that 8% are only using up to a third of their data. So how can we leverage what already exists? How can we leverage what others are developing? We know that on these calls, on these webinars, from our conversations, we meet analytics people, we meet device manufacturers, we meet people who are experts at swimming devices for swimmers. Great. Why do they have to build a whole stack, their own UI interface, their own analytics, their own service provision models? How can they leverage what other people are doing? How can we maximize potential uses? Well, if we're experts, we can be flexible. The steam engine was not designed for trains. It was designed to pump water out of mines. And then someone looked at it and thought, hold on, I can turn this on its side, boom, whole new market, whole new vertical, whole new sector. And that's what the IoT is going to give us. It's going to break us out of this vertical linear thinking. How does our adaptability compare to others? If I can take your wearable device and I can choose, and this is important, again, coming back to the security and the access control, the IoT is ubiquitous, but it has to be personal. It has to be, I can choose what I'm going to do with it and where I'm going to go. But if I can choose to share my Fitbit with my watch, with my clothing, with my washing machine, with my shoes, with the weather conditions, whatever it might be, that adaptability will allow people to enrich and enchant their lives in ways that someone who has a linear, no matter how well designed the form factor is, cannot do. And importantly, in the same way that our data and us are part of ecosystems, we're also part of communities. So how can we leverage and benefit and look at communities and what communities are doing? So where does that take us from here? Well, I would say everything that Ed has outlined are both opportunities and challenges, and really the response is to be an expert. What are you great at? What is your differentiating ability? It can be the expanse of your data set, it might be the richness of your data set, it might be how you gather your data set, but you don't need to own the whole stack. Collaborate, find other people, and they will use things in ways you have never conceived of. You don't need to be the guy sat at that board table saying, what are we going to do with this? How are we going to use it? If you share it, other people will find ways of doing it. And the other thing is to say, just start. You don't need a top-down approach. In fact, I would argue, and it's certainly Iotic Labs' opinion, that a top-down approach will not work. You can't conceive of all of the factors, and you're not allowing that personal, intimate calibration of what's going on. So you can just start. And a trivial example would be something like the toilets on a train. At the moment, the fullness of that toilet on the train, and I apologise for this time in the morning, at least here, that we're talking about toilets, but the fullness of that toilet is one bit of data. You can gather all the data from the train, the doors, the speed, the location, local and cloud data can all be gathered and can all be dumped into a big data set. But that one bit, is the toilet full or is it approaching full? At the moment, that goes into a database and it goes off to a database probably for various legal reasons, located somewhere in the EU. And then who uses it? Who finds out about it? Who has it? Answer, no one. You probably get a report at the end of the month, the end of the week at some point, where someone runs analytics on your big data engine and says, oh look, the toilet was full X times, which meant Y number of days out of service, which meant so many passengers weren't able to use the toilet. Sorry?
And I was going to say, I would argue that the fullness of the toilet on a train is definitely not a trivial one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's not trivial for your average passenger. It's crucial for some people who may have mobility issues that may be selecting services based on whether or not they have access to such things. And that one byte of data you could share into a system like Iotic Space and then make that available to both your suppliers, the people that empty the toilets, the people driving the trains, so they know to take them into the special sidings where the tanks can be emptied. You can make it available to the operators, you can make it available to the stations, you can make it available to your information pools, but you can also make it available to developers. You can make it available to active app communities out there and say to them, what would you do with it? This is what we're using it for. And they may combine it with a whole suite of things. There may be disability and access developers out there who are saying, how would I best plan a route through a major metropolis like London, Milan, Bucharest, wherever? Well, one of the things I might do is I might make sure that along the journey, people with certain impediments or requirements are able to have those met, and I can nominate for them services where we know they will have access to stable toilets, they will have access to lifts that work, they will have access to elevators and escalators, they will have access to all these kind of things because we can track all these bits of data. Now, is that byte of data crucial to the train operator? Almost certainly not. Does it have an exponential effect if you share it and allow it to be combined with other things? Absolutely. Is it difficult to start sharing that one bit of data today? Not at all. Provided you can get that data from the local device to a cloud or a gateway or any of the myriad devices that I know that you guys, MediaTek, are involved in. Anyway, provided you can get it from where it physically is to somewhere else, you can get it into somewhere like Iotic Space, and you can share it with others, and there you go. Suddenly, your toilet is an IoT thing. It does not have to be a top-down piece. Obviously, we're here today because we'd love to help you, and I'm very, very happy to talk to anyone offline, away from this, wherever, about their potential challenges. We have a number of ways of accessing Iotic Space, ways of just starting with us. I won't go into all of them now. It's a conversation for another day, but they are there. It's all available now. It's all up and working. You can access it today, this 5 seconds. And talking of things that you can do right now, both Ed, Michael and I are all involved with the Cambridge Wireless future of wireless events, and in particular the Innovation Showcase, where we are enabling organizations, SMEs and larger organizations to come together, to share, to collaborate, to create real real IoT solutions. And not to inventive problems. By collaborating, we find people that have problems and we can create solutions for them. And so this is something that's going on the 22nd of June, the Innovation Showcase in particular. 5th of May is the deadline for applying, and it's about people bringing their own data sets and using other data sets, open data and other company information data, and bringing it together, collaborating and creating new things that would not otherwise have been possible. So pop along to the website and do sign up, do come along. It's a great way to start, and it means that by the 22nd of June, you will be looking at services that have been created by collaborative teams that are genuine IoT and are genuinely scalable. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to the rest of our conversation.
Thanks, Ali. Hopefully that gave you real kind of food for thought there. Yeah, so we're just wrapping up at the end now, and then hopefully we'll be available for a few minutes for some questions. So what have we learned in summary working with big data? Well, certainly work with MediaTek, please, and actually Iotic Labs as well. You know, we're all here to kind of make you successful, to add value to what you're doing, and that may include, as Ali quite lucidly described, it may include adding value to full toilets on trains as well. So you really don't know what value you have in the data, and often it's somebody else who can take a third-party look at things and say, that could be really useful. Technical considerations are going to be things like how frequently you capture that data. Let's use the toilet example again. Do you need to capture that data in real time every second? Probably not. Every 20 minutes or every half an hour is probably okay in that situation. Do you need to capture road conditions every second? You probably do. So there's different contexts in which you can apply these things. The sensitivity of the data, is it something that requires you to encrypt that data? Is it something that is applicable to an individual? In those situations, you'll need to do have extra considerations, maybe encryption, maybe encrypted data transmission. What's the context? We already mentioned. Is there other impacts that you're generating through the use of data that you can kind of take into account? So it's a case of balancing a lot of these up. It's clear that data generation and usage is going to increase. You know, we've all seen the hockey curves. I tend not to use them myself, but the hockey curves that kind of imply that by 2020 we'll have 20, 30, 40, 50 billion things in the Internet of Things. So even if half of that is true, data is going to be massively increasing in terms of generation. It's the new currency. You know, you can put data into the Iotic space. You can take other people's data out. You can transact around it. So it's going to be the new currency. You don't necessarily have to give data away for free. But actually, if you're not using it, why wouldn't you?
Well, sorry to jump in, Ed. I'd say that one of the things that we've seen people doing as models for that, exactly that kind of transactional data, is maybe giving away aggregated data or data that's delayed over some time period, which allows still that creativity. So you're looking at data and you're saying, oh, this is what movement was happening, this is what people transactions were happening a week ago, today, aggregated, whatever it might be. That allows me to create a service that has some value, so I'm happy to do that. But I might then come to you and say, right, if you could give me the 20-minute lead, the up-to-date, the real, the disaggregated information, I would pay for that because I already have a proof point here that the service with the aggregated data works. If you disaggregate it, brilliant. Yeah, I will be able to charge more for my app. I'll be able to charge more for my service. I am therefore willing to set up a brokered relationship with you where you give me live data or disaggregated data, and then that will enhance my service. That's then a mutually beneficial relationship.
I think that the nature of the data is equally as interesting as the actual data itself. Vast pools of customer data are going to be generated. Analytics is going to become critical, if it isn't already. And I think that the real kind of practical application of analytics will prove to be the difference between a company surviving or failing. And you'll be able to kind of really kind of look to grow. You'll be able to exploit the information that you capture as you collect it to better understand your customers, which obviously, you know, is the end game. You deliver a better customer service, which then makes your customers happier and then brings them back to you in the future. And we've seen examples of organisations that are already, you know, massively superior at their customer service. Don't forget to remember the user. So it's always worth putting the user at the focal point of all this. So data protection applies, security, customer experience. These are all things that can be overlooked when we're talking about big data. Sometimes it's generated by a person, so it's worth bearing that in mind. Sometimes it's just a thing that's just capturing environmental data, so maybe not so important. But do remember the kind of the point of generation. And if that's a person, there's specific other things that we'll need to think about. And I think the other part that we haven't really talked about, but it's very important, and I think Iotic Labs have some solutions around this, is that not all the data that you can get access to, you know the provenance of it. You might not know that it's data generated in a certain form by a certain device that may not be kind of calibrated to the same level as your own device is. You may not even be able to prove that it's actually real data. So a lot of these, a lot of things that you'll need to think about when you're potentially using Iotic Labs would be, can we provide kind of good provenance for the data that we're getting? Can we stand up to it? Is there kind of sort of backup that says where this data is coming from?
Absolutely, sorry. And on that, we do use metadata that helps with the provenance and allows you to track and so on. But this again is about being expert. There are already organizations out there. The National Physics Laboratory here, there are organizations all over Europe and globally who do this kind of calibration testing, who do this kind of service provision. And if we can share it, that's another service. That's an IoT service right there. I will come out and I will verify that the data coming off your device is valid and has a margin of error of plus or minus 5% or whatever it might be. And then I can tag that thing in Iotic space or wherever it's being stored or shared. And I can tag that thing. And as a result, other people can then look and decide, do I take these free sensors and aggregate them myself and work out where I'm going to sit? Or it's a business critical decision I need to make, so I'm going to go to one that has had a service provision layer added to it and has said, yes, this has been calibrated in the last week and it's accurate to within these measurements. Those services already exist. If we can collaborate and share, they don't have to be part of your stack. If you do it, fantastic. Come along, you can offer it to the world. But yeah, it's something that it's another aspect of this collaboration.
So really what we're talking about is big data. You know, if you look at the iceberg model, big data is the 90% that you don't know about that adds value to the 10% you do know about. And hopefully we've given you some insight into the value that you're getting already, that you can actually leverage then, and that you may gain advantage from using in the future. So our next steps, register at labs.mediatek.com. I guess register at Iotic Labs as well.
Iotic-labs.com.
I should have put that on the slides, but
I'll give you this one.
download the SDKs, have a look at the boards, including the new Sense 687. Watch out, we've got a new webinar coming next month, which is all going to be focused around IoT security. It's one of the hot topics. We're trying to hit some of these hot topics in these webinar sessions. So security, we've had feedback to say that's a key thing that we'd really like to learn about. So we'll be talking a little bit in more detail about that, hopefully with an interesting guest. And I guess questions, if they're coming through, over to you, Michael.
Well, thank you, Ed and Ali, for a very interesting overview of big data and what you can do with it. I think it's very much a case of As I said, we've got all this data. Let's start using it and sharing it to see where it can take us. So that's very exciting.